Realism in games is dumb. Like, most of the time. Sure, it can be cool to marvel at how much technology has evolved since the bygone era of sprites and PNG faces plastered over low-poly models. But I am honestly so done with this fetishization of graphics and realism. Video games are a form of fiction, so they should be treated as such. Now, there is some level of realism that we should expect in our games, because it grounds fiction in something we recognize. Abstract art is pretty tough to replicate in video games, considering the nature of the entire genre is about player control and choice, and abstractism can take that away. So games are typically going to remain more concrete. It just differs how much from project to project. But when I'm playing a game, I'm here to have fun, to either escape from the real world or enjoy time with friends. And when those games start throwing in elements from reality, it can disrupt that flow. I've recently been playing GTA 5 with friends. I know, I'm late by about 10 years, but that's not the point. The GTA series, much like many of Rockstar's projects, has tried hard to capture the feel of its perspective world. Just as Red Dead Redemption is there to give you an authentic Wild West experience, GTA is there to make you feel like a real-life criminal. Warts and all. The number of times that this obsession towards the simulation has dampened my play experience is fairly more than I'd like. Flying, swimming, jumping, even some of the running and driving can feel awkward or clunky, and not because it's an old game, but because it caters to the simulation. It can be really immersive, yeah, but I've also felt so frustrated when my character doesn't control the way I'd like them to. And this is true for a fair amount of other games that vie for realism. War shooters like Call of Duty and Battlefield let you die so easily and quickly, and while this makes these games fast-paced, it can also make them frustrating. I remember disliking the traditional modes of Counter-Strike because one mistake, and it's all over. Your round is finished. It's realistic and punishing, they say. Competitive. Okay. Now, explain to me how that's fun. Now, I have played a lot of competitive games in my years. Team Fortress 2, Marvel Rivals, I used to play Pokemon Leagues back in the day, and I've worked to master a few kart racers to show up in online leaderboards. But the difference is that the games I partake in are obviously far more fictional. Characters can fly, shoot lasers, stop time, and move incredibly fast. This adds a lot more variety to the gameplay loop. Hero shooters are still very fast and punish poor play, but the amount of abilities and character types makes players approach fights differently than if it was just gunplay. Kart racers can be just as tactical as traditional racers like Forza, but now with items and mini-turbos. Granted, every single game has some form of fantasy in its gameplay, even GTA or COD, but the ones I enjoy gear more towards the fantastical. That type of fast, hyper-competitive realism just isn't for me. If it's your thing, go for it. But let's step away from gameplay, because the big discussion is, and has always been, around graphics. Games have to look one-to-one with reality. The better consoles become, the more we can push to have polished textures, better physics, and faster processing. It's honestly incredible. But why does this always seem to start the conversation of how real games can look? Why the fuck do we care so much? I grew up in the 90s, and my consoles of choice were the PS1, the N64, and the Game Boy Advance. In this era, developers were far more limited by the consoles, and thus had to be more creative with how they approached their games. You couldn't just make any model that you wanted, and the limitations of the consoles stopped them from making any kind of level they wanted. So, we got cartoony platformers, crazy boomer shooters, and gorgeous turn-based RPGs. All games that welcomed different styles, tones, and gameplay tweaks. Games that weren't real, they were cool, they were silly, they were fun. And that never stopped being true, of course. But during the Xbox 360 PS3 era, consoles could do a whole lot more, so gamers and creators wanted to test that. We got more realistic games that evolved from the dated looks of the PS2 and original Xbox. Better physics engines, levels and worlds could be even bigger, games could load faster. So what kind of games took over during this time? Fuck me. I love FPS games. But holy shit, why did we want so many murky and gritty games? The only personality to speak of was angry growling. They were so real though. They're also hideous. Color palettes ranging from gray to brown. And a lot of the most popular franchises were like this, even outside of FPS. Gears of War, Grand Theft Auto, The Last of Us, Sleeping Dogs, the Batman Arkham series. Why are they all so gray? And I like some of these games too, but they weren't allowed to be pretty or creative a lot of the time, even when they were set in fantastical worlds. But gamers and reviewers were so blown away by realistic textures and physics. That's not to say it isn't impressive, because it is. This kind of immersion can be beautiful in the right hands. It can also be fun if you inject a little bit of silliness into it. But fuck, it gets tiring after a while, looking at the same real faces and same real textures. Psychonauts 2 is one of the most creatively and narratively beautiful games to come out in the last few years, in my opinion. And the characters all look incredibly distorted and cartoony, unable to exist in the real world. But that's why I remember it. The artistry is allowed to shine. You can see someone's unique vision and direction in a game like this. The same goes for Hi-Fi Rush, which is littered with cel-shaded characters that pop alongside 2D effects and texturing. The whole game feels like a silly rock music video. I think as consoles have gotten stronger, the best artists are the ones that use that power and lack of restriction to let their creativity go untethered. Games can look basically however we want them to now. We can recreate the Fleischer style of the early 1900s with games like Cuphead, Mouse BI, and Into the Unwell. Stop-motion games like the upcoming Out of Words can look exactly like a Studio Leica movie. And even in more realistic-looking games like the recent Doom or God of War entries, we still get incredible visuals and colors that make every environment and character feel alive. The textures and physics look real, but the worlds are also allowed to be expressive. Immersive games that devote themselves to realism are fine. I can't say I haven't gotten at least a little sucked into games like GTA 5. There is still artistry that goes into these games that deserves to be recognized. But the devotion to realism also takes away some of the ability to be creative, and this is noticeable when you compare them to similar games that don't have this crutch. I'm a little bitter about this because so many gamers were completely insufferable about graphics for so many years. Many of them still are. But games are art, so we need to let artists make what they want to. If they want to make a realistic simulation about living in the Wild West as a cowboy, that's fine. But if they want to make a game where you play as bean people running through impossible to exist obstacle courses, that's also fine. So shut up about graphics, pick up a controller, and just enjoy whatever games you want to. Let people make what they want and play what they want.